Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Zone podcast. My name is Nate Cohn. I'm once again joined by my incredible, awesome, had it up co host Riley Davis here on this beautiful January 14th night, 5 days before the national championship. And we have our national championship. It will be the Miami Hurricanes playing at home, going through a gauntlet in the college football playoffs against the Indiana Hoosiers, who have systematically obliterated both of the teams they have played, became the only team to survive the first round by curse, and it will all be decided Monday night in Miami. Riley,
How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I told you this does not feel real. Um, and I guess we should say, welcome to our national championship preview episode. We will talk about the games that happened in the playoffs and the bowls in our end of season review. But we thought, as the college football content creators we should probably get a national championship preview out here. Um, I am in disbelief, even though that I know this team has been the best in the country for a month at this point ish. Still in disbelief that we are here, that this is happening, that Indiana's an 8.5 point favorite, widely considered to be like kind of a shame if they don't win it. Not a disappointment. Stephen A said that it would be a disappointment if Indiana doesn't win the national championship, which just shows he's never set foot in Bloomington because as someone on the ground here, everyone I've talked to said like, yeah, it'll suck if we lose, but there's like no way that this year can be like a disappointment.
That's fair.
Um, we're just happy to be here. Um, but yes, Riley, what do you think are the main key points going into this national championship? This is probably going to be one of the most like fully analytical episodes the two of us have had. Um,
Well,
what do
because
you think of the
we're not
main?
talking about, it's gonna be a shorter episode too, because it's literally we're not talking about
We're just
anything
talking about.
else.
We're just previewing the
Um,
Natty.
and
What are your
here's the
main
thing.
points going into the game?
Um, the thing is literally like I'm gonna tie in an outside conversation we had. Is that you have said national championship, anything can happen. It's a crazy game. There's a lot riding on this. Technically, it is in Miami, but the tickets are hella expensive. So like,
Minimum price to get in as of recording this, by the way, is like 4.5 grand or
which is
something
always
along
something
those
that I look
lines.
at as I always look at the week and I'm like, oh, tickets starting as low as this or as high as this. And I like, because that's always interesting to me. But like,
Tickets starting as low as 3 grand.
Jesus, this says, hey, yep, tickets as low as $2,803.
Holy
So,
moly.
we should just go. We could easily afford that.
I'm gonna sell a
Um,
kidney.
um, but I mean, honestly, I think being on the campus would be sick.
It's really
But
cool.
we talked about earlier this week, like you said, it's a national championship, anything can happen. My personal opinion, Miami does not stand a chance. Um, realistically. I mean, Carson Beck has been locking in, but like,
Arguably, you could say this is the best he's played all year in this playoffs.
yeah, he's still got 11 interceptions, okay? Um, but I mean, I know I have said you can't call him the number one country in the nation, callback. But, I don't think that he is like Fernando Mendoza's been like freaking killing it, man. And like as much as I think that like Oregon like shat the bed in like the semis,
Yeah.
um I like Fernando Mendoza's been on a roll. Like he's a freaking Heisman winner. Like hello. You can't
Best the
not
best
love him.
stat around him is that in the playoffs, Fernando Mendoza has 5 incomplete passes in 2 games and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, which is
He is
crazy.
still the last like Mendoza did this earlier in the year, but he did it against like Indiana State and Kennesaw State, and now he's doing it against Alabama and Oregon.
Which is like because it's always like with any type of tournament or like playoff, it's always like these are the games that count. So it's like a loss now is like
You're done.
sucks. Like that's it. Like that ends the season, a loss now. It's different like in the regular season, like a loss can sting a lot and it can suck, but like it doesn't end your season. This like legit ends the season. I mean, yes, this is the final game, but
Little
but
little a
like
little bit of a snozberries tastes like snozberries
yeah.
kind of
But I
take
mean
from
like it's
you.
just like well like we talk
But
about like
yeah,
with any but like it's the ability the reason I like was going on that whole like tangent is like the ability to show up in the games that like matter show
Yeah.
up and show out in the games that matter. Like it's
And
still absolutely insane. Because like five of those touchdowns are freaking
in the
was
Oregon game,
in the Oregon game, which is
yeah,
crazy. And so like it's literally like
I
I
think,
think he's grooving, basically.
yeah, I think, and honestly, you can say that about both quarterbacks. I think this is the best ball Beck's been playing all year. He was iffy in the Texas A&M game, was good enough to get the job done in the Ohio State game, and was a game changer in the Ole Miss game. He looked
Hmm.
like he was back to his old Georgia form before his Georgia form the year they beat TCU. Or no,
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett was the quarterback that year. The year that Georgia beat Florida State in the Orange Bowl by like 70 when he was the starting quarterback that year. And he was a bona fide Heisman candidate that year. We can shit on Carson Beck all we want because that's what the two of us have done for the better
His
part of the
snaps are
last
still
two
the same
year.
though.
Yes, well, that one was fake. The one that was after the Fiesta Bowl. But like this is the best he's been playing all year, and he's turned it up. I think Mendoza, this is the best he's been playing all year. I genuinely think we are in for a cracker of a game in the national championship. I think the big thing is going to be the defensive fronts on both sides. Miami has the second best defense, and maybe arguably the first best defense that IU has faced this year. You could maybe make the argument for Ohio State, who's maybe a better defense than Miami. But as we saw in the Cotton Bowl, that I thought the Miami defense played better than the Ohio State defense in that game. Um, it's going to be the battle of the two fronts. Miami has Miami continuously gets like underrated by the players that are going up against them. Is what IU cannot do is give Miami bulletin board material, and the players won't do that because Miami's defensive line is a just a murderer's row of killers. This is maybe the best defensive line in the country. You could make the argument that Ohio State could potentially get that, or Indiana could get that. But looking at their stats in the playoffs, they are averaging 3 or 4 sacks a game. They are probably playing the best of any defense, maybe with the exception of Indiana, who I think has done a very good job of containing this playoffs. But looking at their defensive front, you have players like Jacoby Thomas, Mohamed Torre, Akeem Mesidor, who is maybe their best player, who had an injury issue at the end of the Fiesta Bowl, but it's looking like that's not going to be an issue. Xavier Lucas, Zachariah Poyser, it is a murderer's row. Keontae Scott of just incredible defensive players on Miami's front. If Miami wins this game, it is going to be because of their defense.
Do
Because
you think it's gonna come down to the defense if like we just
if
talked
this is
about
close, yeah.
both of these quarterbacks have been like on a freaking roll. And so like it could be that like the key to winning this game is like stopping these offenses in their tracks and like
I think that's it.
making sure that these quarterbacks can't do what they
Yeah,
do. Um,
100%.
I also like a small tangent from the technical things is about when we were first talking about the playoffs and how we thought, there was a period of time where it looked like there was going to be no ACC team in the playoff, and
And now
now
the
they're in the
ACC is playing
final.
for the national championship. Um, I think I think this has been a great job by this Miami team. If they end up coming short, then it like I would say this is a successful year. We didn't even think they were going to make the playoffs at a single at going. We didn't think they were going to make the playoffs while they were revealing the teams that were in the playoffs. So the fact
Mhm.
that Miami is even here, beat Ohio State, beat Texas A&M, beat Ole Miss to get themselves here is a
They did have
very
one of the worst first round games,
yeah, that game sucked. But
but
they did the
since
job.
then, it's been since they freaking beat Ohio State and then they freaking beat Ole Miss and then now they're here. So like,
And I
what
will
can you
say,
say?
let's get into we're gonna get into like a little bit. I want to track back to what you were saying about how the roadmap to victory for both of these teams. I really agree with what you said about if Miami is going to win this game, it's going to be their defense. Like they're
Mhm.
going to need to stop Fernando Mendoza. They're going to need to stop Elijah Surratt. This running game for IU, which towards the end of the year, with the exception of the Purdue game, because that's the equivalent of playing like JV high schoolers, IU's running game was not great. And in the playoffs, they've been averaging like 160 per game. It's been the best this running game has looked since like the first few weeks of the season. And
Yeah.
Miami,
So
to
that
their
D line is
credit,
going to be scary.
Miami has done the best job of stopping the run of almost any team in the playoffs. With once again with the exception of IU. These are the two best defenses. Like it is 1A and 1B in the Natty. Like it IU has done an incredible job. Bama finished with I think 23 net rushing yards. Oregon finished with like, granted, it finished with a lot because they had the 75-yard run in the second quarter. But if you in the third quarter, if you take that out, Oregon finished with like 30 rushing yards. So like these are 1A and 1B when it comes to the defense. And for Indiana, they have a lot of ways they can win this game. We'll get to that. But focusing specifically on Miami, they need their defense to step up one more time in this playoffs. They stepped up every game. Held A&M to 3 points, held Ohio State to 14, held Ole Miss to 27, where they bended and bended and bended, but didn't break. But if they are going to beat Indiana, they need to stop this offense.
Yeah.
And if
I
they
mean,
if
it's
they
like we
can't,
said, it's like the game that counts. Like
mhm.
this is the game. So it's like if you're
It's
gonna show
also,
up at any time.
yeah. And I think another big thing is going to be the mistakes we saw in the Oregon Indiana game. I was mentioning to you before we started recording, Oregon almost beat Indiana in every single statistical category. But the turnovers, the Dante Moore pick six on the first play of the game, two fumbles deep in Oregon territory. Indiana scored 28 points in this game on 31 yards of total offense at one point. Or it
Yeah.
was
That's
four
like
four of our drives, if you include the pick six, that equaled 28 points came off of 31 yards of total offense. Because with this Indiana team, we are, and I'm not like trying to be like overconfident here. This is what people like people in the college football world have said. This Indiana team is too good. You cannot give them short fields. They will score touchdowns. They have done that in
well,
every single
especially
game this year.
especially like playing any team, because that was my biggest takeaway from the freaking or from the Chick-fil-A Bowl, or I guess it's the Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. But literally my biggest takeaway was literally just the mistakes coming out of Oregon is just like, what are you like? You can't do that against any team, let
Let
alone the
alone,
semifinals against the number one ranked team in the country. You can't be making like horrendous mistakes. And so
and
like I'm assuming that Miami is not going to be like that.
but I will say, I think this is what this Indiana team does. They make you make mistakes. Oregon had not played like that in a game the entire year. And you can't even say that the moment got to them because they had just played in a playoff game a week before in the Orange Bowl against Texas Tech. It's just what this Indiana team does. They choke you out with the defensive pressure, the defensive line. Daniel Ndukwe, who we will talk about it in like a week or so when we do the postseason review, but I want to give him his flowers. Daniel Ndukwe is a third string defensive end who forced two fumbles, had a blocked punt, had two sacks, had his best game he has ever had as a player. And it's the coaching. This is the best coaching staff, top to bottom, in the entire country. Sig's the best head coach. Bryant Haynes is an incredible defensive coordinator. Mike Shanahan, I had my problems with him at the beginning of the year, but he has gotten so much better. And it's just what this Indiana team does. They force you into making mistakes. They take advantage of those mistakes and they sweep the leg. Like Indiana scored a touchdown on every one of Oregon's turnovers and blocked punts and all of that. Like Oregon had, if you include the block punt, four turnovers that IU scored 28 points off of. So if Miami even wants to have a shot at this game, they either need the turnover difference to be equal, which even then, I think if the turnover difference is equal, Miami still might not have a shot. Like we've seen IU have equal turnovers, equal against Ohio State, lost the turnover battle against Penn State in that game they almost lost earlier in the year. And IU still found a way to win. So I actually am going to change that. Miami needs to win the turnover battle. They need to force IU into making a mistake, which they have not done a single time in the playoffs. Perfect. Almost completely perfect from this Indiana team. So it's gonna take a mammoth performance out of this Miami team.
Yeah. I mean, I said my realistic opinion is Miami has no chance. Like this isn't even speaking from a like I don't even like this is I don't even think I could say anything of like, well, to play devil's advocate or like, what could happen. I'm just like being
I
realistic
feel like
with the way that Indiana has been like
I'm
able.
playing devil's advocate against myself.
Yeah, I'm just being like objectively speaking, you're fine.
And like looking at Miami's offense, because we've talked about the defense. Let's look at both of the offenses. Miami has one of the most explosive playmakers that will be in this game because IU doesn't have a lot of like explosive playmakers. They have a lot of guys who are incredibly good, but like IU doesn't score a lot of deep touchdowns, at least not until Charlie Becker, who I would say is our one explosive playmaker guy. But they have the most explosive playmaker guy, I think, in this game with Malachi Tony at wide receiver. Like it is inevitable he is going to do something in this game. He did it against in every game he's played in. He has had a pivotal moment. So the key for IU is just going to be making sure that he either only gets one or that when it happens, it's too late. It's the same thing with Jeremiah Smith in the Big Ten championship. We limited him to only like one or two big splash plays and just kind of, and that was it. That was enough to beat him. So I think limiting that, and I think the question I pose to you, Riley, is if Miami has a chance to compete here, what are we going to need to see out of Carson Beck? Are we going to need to see a step up from the Fiesta Bowl, or can he play kind of similar to that?
I mean, we just talked about how like the defense is really gonna make a big difference in this, and by like default, yes, like a step up from the Fiesta Bowl. Just because if both of these defenses are like stacked and you're going up against a game where like in theory, like I know I said that I think that like Miami has no shot here, but like in theory, like some pretty like tough matchup of like skills and like offense versus defense on like both ends. Yes, because if you're like gonna be able to push past the IU defense and like make some moves and like yes, pushing through for like in the Fiesta Bowl, like a good win, like was able to push past Ole Miss, I would say yes, you need to step up just because of course like again, this is the game and if you're like facing arguably the not arguably, the toughest opponent thus far. And so, like, you have to do a step up if you're facing the toughest opponent and maybe the toughest defense that you. Well, we've talked about Ohio State might be a toughest defense and like tougher defense than IU,
But
but if you're
it's a
facing
similar
these
thing.
two, you're facing these two. Like you faced a tough defense already. You're facing another tough defense, so it's like you have to show up. And so, like, I would say like Carson Beck needs to like lock in because like that's gonna be it's gonna be crazy. I don't know what else to say besides it's gonna be crazy.
And
Like,
I think something that we haven't mentioned is maybe one of the reasons why Beck played so well in the Fiesta Bowl is Ole Miss does not have a great defense. Like that had been documented in the first round. Tulane put up roughly 400 yards on them. Georgia put up a incredible offensive, not incredible, but Georgia was doing the business against Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss's defense wasn't great in the Sugar Bowl either. They won that because Trinidad Chambliss turned into God himself. And so, and then obviously, and then Miami, whose offense is fine. They weren't good against Texas A&M. They were really good for a half against Ohio State, and then they kind of fell off a little bit in the second half. But they played their best game against Ole Miss. So, how much of this do you think is the Miami offense finally getting into its groove, or just them going up against maybe the worst defense that out of the Power Four teams, maybe the worst defense in the playoffs?
I mean, you could talk about that, but then also the game before this, they did go up against Ohio State, which we did just talk about having a great defense. So,
And
I mean, I think it's probably a
Carson
lot
Beck
of on their offense, just because if they push through one of the harder offenses, and then like, yes, if Ole Miss doesn't have the best of defenses, they still did
and
convincingly beat Ohio State.
looking at Carson Beck in the Ohio State game, 19 for 26 for 138 and a touchdown, which is, if we're going to be honest, not a stat line that jumps off the page.
No.
Miami's, and it was well documented. Miami's offense did not do a lot in the second half against against Ohio State. The defense was the majority of the reason why Miami won that game. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what they deal with this Indiana team. I do feel like we've spent almost this entire time talking about Miami, but I think it's because Indiana's a known quantity. Like you
And
know what
plus,
you're gonna
we
get.
low key have talked about Indiana all season.
We have, but we can give a little short thing. This Indiana team is almost unstoppable. They are perfectly coached. They don't
I
make
mean, so
mistakes.
far.
Best defense in the country, one of the best offenses in the country. I think if you need to beat Indiana, if you beat Indiana, you need to make them make mistakes. That's what happened in all of the games that we played close this year. Penn State, Iowa, all both of those games, the like Iowa and Penn State both forced us into a lot of stupid mistakes. And granted, the team hasn't really made a dumb mistake since the Penn State game, but there's no better time than the present. if you're Miami to start getting this IU team to make mistakes. Um, so it'll be really interesting. And yeah, if there is nothing else, we can sign this home with our final score predictions for the national championship.
Do you want to go first since it's
I'll
your
go first.
team?
I think Indiana wins, and I think they win. I'm just gonna be different than what I told you earlier because I've thought about it since talking. 38-17.
That's really close to what I was gonna
I think it's
say.
close in the first half. Like I think we go into halftime with Indiana winning by a touchdown, maybe 3 points, something along those lines. But then I think IU's experience, the toughness, the grit, the determination of this football team brings them home in the second half, and IU wins the Natty.
That's crazy. I was literally gonna say 38-14,
So we're
which
in
is
we're in
wild.
we're in agreement.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, I already said, I think Indiana's got it. And also, like, the score you told me
I told you
before we started
38-20.
filming was like way closer than I think
I
it's
said
probably gonna be.
38-20 before we started, and I
Yeah.
changed it to 38-17. So not much, but like
Yeah.
um yeah, it'll be a good one, I think. Should be a fun game. If IU wins, you will see me probably be the happiest I've ever been on this podcast when we record
If
on.
they lose our next episode, Nate's gonna be
I
in
will be
all black.
depressed.
Sunglasses,
I'm wearing all
hood
black right
on.
now. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I guess like all black doesn't really like mean anything because you and I wear a lot of black in general, but
I will say, if they lose, I will be sad, but hell of a season.
hell of a
No
season.
one can ever take
I
this
mean, if
away from
you
us.
lose, you're ending, what is your end? You're gonna end
15-1.
15-1. So like
No one will ever be able to take this away from us even if we lose in the Natty.
still
So
hell of a run.
I was at the Rose Bowl. I was at the Peach Bowl. I am ready to like. I have watched my teams. Look, on a personal note, I have watched my team win 6 national championships in my life. I have been fortunate enough to grow up as an Alabama fan. This one feels roughly to what it felt like the first one for me, which was 2012. And really, the first game that I was like uber stressed beforehand was 2015 because I was 6 in 2012 when that game happened. But this feels like the first one all over again. It's gonna feel like the first one if we win it. Um, it'll be cool to be on a college campus if we win the Natty. I've been very transparent on this podcast that when I came to IU, I came here for basketball, under the assumption that football would win 5 games a year, and I would be content with that because 5 games a year is better than what IU usually does,
And look what
which is
happened.
3 games a year. Um, and now we're 1 game away from having the best record, tie the best record anyone's ever had in college football, in arguments with the 2019 LSU and 2020 Bama teams for one of the best college football teams ever. Um, I love this team to death. Um, it'll be fun no matter what happens. Still proud of all these boys. Proud to proud to be here in Bloomington. It's been fun. I've been to, I did the math. 9 of IU's I would have been to 9 of IU's 16 games this year in person, which will be pretty cool. Um, but yeah, go Hoosiers. Go
My
Hoosiers,
version of
guys.
that is I was 11 when the women's basketball team won in 2017.
Oh yeah, we would have been 11 in 2017. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, I
Well, you
would
would
have
have been
been, it was like
11.
fresh,
I would have
it
been
was like
10.
March 2017.
I would have been 11. You would have been almost 12.
Yeah. So that's mine. I have women's basketball.
Yeah. Well, we will see you after the national championship, probably on the Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, depending on
Probably.
schedules and things of that nature. It'll probably end up maybe being Wednesday. But yeah, let's uh let's have a fun time in Miami. Why don't we? Well, not us. We're not
Yay.
going. But
No.
one more game. One more
As we
game
said,
this
the
year.
tickets are $3,000.
Yeah. Well, as always, I've been Nate Cohen, joined by my incredible co-host Riley Davis, and that was the Red Zone podcast. Go Hoosiers!
Bye.